Loftier City Expats Club is a non-profit social organisation and our speakers are volunteers. The club as such assumes no responsibility or liability for the professional reputation of or the quality of services provided by the speaker today.
New Zealander, but don't hold that against him. New Zealand.
Okay, it's very nice to be here in Pattaya in Thailand, and I'm looking forward to giving you my talk, and also you'll learn a little bit about who your next door neighbour is through their personality very soon. Okay, let's start off. Hands up those that can't read their own handwriting. A few of you, right. And hands up those that can't read the doctor's signature on their prescription. Right. So if I give you 1,000 people's handwriting, everybody's handwriting is different. And that's because handwriting transitions through your age, commensurate with your personal or emotional experiences. When you are young, your handwriting is in an immature stage. When you're in your middle years, your handwriting goes into a semi-mature stage, and when you're in your senior years, your handwriting goes into a deterioration stage. Right, okay, so let's not confuse the two. My first half of the talk is on graphology, and the second half is on forensic document and question signature examination. So let's not confuse the two. Graphology ascertains one's character through their handwriting. Forensic document examination ascertains if the signatures are genuine or not. Both use the same component traits of handwriting, but for different purposes. Most forensic handwriting analysis have got some graphology background in front of them. If I go to court, I say that my forensic analysis is not based on graphology, but on the scientific principles of questioned handwriting and document examination. Often the case if I say my analysis is done on graphology, well, the judge will depose me. Okay, so let's start. Which one do I click? On the right. Okay, so first of all, I'm fully certified from the United States. There's no training organisations in Australia or New Zealand that do this sort of work. For me to have membership of the American organisations, you need to actually have a point system to actually have points renewal systems. So the two organisations I'm a member of is the Scientific Association of Forensic Examiners, and the other one, the International Association of Document Examiners. So it's very limited field, and it's very sort of, there's no sort of training institutions that do these sorts of things, but you need to have some sort of credentials behind you if you're going to court and arguing or looking at somebody's signature, which may involve millions of dollars. Okay, hands up, have you heard of graphology before? Anyone? Ren has, I know one or two. Okay, let's go through the applications of graphology. First of all, it unlocks the mystery of human personality. Sometimes it's used for employment recruitment, not much now because most people apply for employment via email. Anyone here getting married again? Nobody? Okay. Marriage compatibility, see whether you're compatible or not with each other. Forgeries and documents is the majority of the work that I do, and I can also pick up minor health warnings. As I say, as you get older, your writing deteriorates. Okay, these are the things graphology cannot ascertain. I cannot predict the future. If you want to know about your future, go and see a clairvoyant. I cannot tell the writer's age or sex, but I can tell how sexually active you are or not. The writer's Nationality has something to do how you were taught to write. Left or right-handed doesn't concern me much. Children's handwriting I try and avoid because they're still in the impressionable stage, and influence of education, how you're taught to write, may still be with you. Okay, so how's an analysis done? Well, after I go talking to you, don't go practicing on the boss or the mother-in-law, because if you can get somebody's character and it goes wrong and it can backfire on you, then it can be quite embarrassing for you. So I look at how you write, not what you write. You can write what you want, but it's how you write. I always ask you to write on unlined paper, because that means the pen is free from the restrictions of lines and boxes. The pen's free to flow without any constrictions. I ask you to write in a comfortable position, as you are now, because the arm is supported, the pen is nicely gripped, and you're in a comfortable position, so the writing doesn't distort all that much. The writing can be distorted, say, on the back of a car or on your knee. And I ask you to use ballpoint pen rather than fountain pens, although we've got a whole variety of different writing instruments now. Even though we're writing less now because we've got computers and printers to do the work for us, somebody's writing down something somewhere, aren't they? Because large multinational companies like Bic pens are still selling millions of pens each year, so somebody's writing down something somewhere, aren't they? Even though we're tapping on keyboards more and more now. Okay, these are some of the handwriting traits we consider. It's like a recipe which all gets mixed in, and then I have a look at the majority of traits, which is the most outstanding in the actual on the actual page. These are similar traits that we use for forensic document examination, but in a different sort of a light. Okay, so writing reads back to you. I mean, immediately you get a letter in the mail or get somebody's writing in an envelope or something like that, you immediately can recognize whose it's from, because each of us are writing uniquely and is personalized to you and nobody else. So I'd like to think that most of us here have a medium, middle-sized writing. People with very small writing are probably can concentrate on lots of things. People with very large writing may be pretentious show-offs. So immediately the writing reveals something back to you immediately. Once again, if I see the writing well balanced in the upper, middle and the lower zone letters, the writing is probably from an all-round well-balanced personality and somebody that's reliable. If the writing is very small, somebody may be able to apply lots of concentration power, things like that. If the writing's too large, that means they can't concentrate on any one subject for too long a period. So immediately the writing, the pictorial effect of the writing reads back to you. Okay, so writing comes in three parts. Some of us actually write, some of us print script, and some of us print as well. Writing is called, that's connected, is called cursive writing. Writing that's actually partly disconnected is called print script writing, and of course some of us may print. We not only look at the actual connections, but the type of connections. So if the writing is connected, you may be a logical thinker. If the writing is partly connected, that means you may be intuitive in your thinking. So everybody's different, and every sort of connection point is different. Not only the actual type of, if the writing's connected, but if the connections are rounded or angular, the different shape of the actual connections between the letters themselves. Okay, so we have a look at the upper zone letters, your H's and your B's, for instance, and your Y's and your G's, for instance. The upper zone loop of the of the H's are your ambitions and aspirations. We not only look at the length of the loop, the width of the loop, the shape of the loop, the association it has with the following letter, for instance. So every different shape may mean a different personality trait. Same with the Y's and the G's, for instance, whether the return stroke returns to the baseline or below the baseline or above the baseline, and once again the shape, the length and the width and the loop of those particular letters. And we have a look at the proportions of the upper and lower zone letters with your middle zone letters as well. Okay, why I asked you to write on unlined paper is because I can see how your writing is spaced out on the margins. Okay, so most people actually have margins that actually, if the margins are all well balanced all round, for instance, that means you might be, let's see, which is the actual, the red button. Okay, so if we look at the a balanced, good all-round balanced personality, if we see the margins away from the left-hand side, that means these sort of people may want to actually be left alone. And again, the wide margins on the right-hand side mean sensitivity, or maybe want to be a little bit more left alone themselves. Okay, even though we look at margins and see how we relate to other people, margins also tell us how we like to spend our money. So when we look at the middle one, see the margin starts narrow and ends wide. Well, that means we can say that money slips through his fingers quite easily, as opposed to this one here, where the margin starts narrow and ends wide. That means that he'll be able to put the brakes on when spending the money. Remember, when it comes to graphology, most of us are human beings are too complicated creatures to get 100% accuracy. So whenever I do an analysis, it's usually about 75 to 80% accuracy on handwriting, and it can vary from week to week, from day to day. Okay, the other reason I asked you to write on unlined paper is to have a look at your baseline alignment. So if I look at the baseline, if it's ascending, going up like that, means you may be optimistic or happy or energetic. Most of us will have a baseline like that, like a snake, so that means we're quite flexible. If I see the baseline descending, you may be a little bit fatigued or not so much pessimistic. If I see the baseline all over the place like that, maybe you're inclined to be a little bit moody or changeable. Okay, do you know, for instance, there's about 50 ways to cross a T-bar. So T-bars, T-stems, the association they have with the next letter, the height of the T-bar, the shape of the T-stem, they all have different personality characteristics. So, for instance, if I look at 2+ there, the T-bar flying ahead of the stem, that means that person may be impatient for speedy results. If I have a look at the one there, 1- there, the T-bar ahead of the stem, that means that person may be procrastinating. If I look at the T-bars with hooks and things like that, that person may like to keep things or be very possessive. If I see odd-looking T-bars like that, well, I have to take that into context with the total personality, but that may mean sort of sort of a strange or oddball character. T-bar like that may mean sensitivity. So each one of these may have a different personality analysis. Not only the T-bar, but the I dot and the shape of the I dot itself. Okay, let's look at a couple of handwriting samples which are like chalk and cheese. Okay, so this one is written in block capital letters. Okay, so anybody that writes in block capital letters likes to communicate in an exact and precise manner without any misinterpretation. And often you'll see airline pilots writing in block capital letters. In this case here, you can see the space in between the the words and the lines are very exact. You can see the left-hand margin very exact as well. This person would be very upset if their routine has changed. This person has got no sense of humour whatsoever. This person would be very difficult to get to know, very rigid. You can tell by the rhythm of the writing, isn't it? It seems stiff and cramped, and it's not freely flowing. So a very difficult person to make friends with, and it's upright as well. So whenever they communicate to you, it's always without any misrepresentation. As opposed to this person here, you can see the writing flows across the page, doesn't it? It's not, the rhythm is much more loose than that. So basically, this person here would be an easier person to get to know, friendly person, probably untidy bedroom or untidy house, but somebody that's very much easygoing and good sense of humour as well. So the rhythm of the writing, look at the rhythm, and it immediately reads back to you on that person's characteristics. Okay, now, even though, as I said before, we're writing less now, we're still signing, aren't we? We're still signing signatures on your passport and legal agreements, things like that. A signature has to be assessed separately from the handwriting. A signature is something that is unique to you. A signature is how you portray your personality to the outside world. A signature can have something to do with your vocation. A signature is unique to you. You can change your signature during your lifetime according to your circumstances and vocation. So immediately the signatures are still used because we're identifiable by them. Okay, we'll have a look at a signature here. This is in New Zealand. This person here was an ex-mayor of Auckland, but he owns a breakfast cereal company, and he puts his name on the back of all his cornflakes packets. Okay, so isn't it nice to see a clear, legible signature now, isn't it? Most people scribble the signatures now, which are just intersections and illegible things. Now, don't get me wrong. People that sign each day may be lawyers or doctors or something, and it's a time-saving constraint, and then the signature just ends up into a scribble. But it's nice to see a clear, legible signature. So in this case here, it's dominated with very high upper zone loop letters there. So he's high on ambition and aspirations, and dominated with very low middle zone letters there. And so he pays close attention to detail. The signature is upright, so he's always very emotionally controlled. But somebody that's reliable and somebody you can trust on a legible signature. Okay, now this is where we need the pens and papers. So you've all got a piece of paper in front of you. What I'm going to ask you to do now is sign the signature and swap it with your next door neighbour or somebody you don't like or whatever. And then I'm going to ask a whole lot of questions on that signature. So sign the signature and swap it with somebody else, and I'll give you a minute to do that, and then I'm going to ask you some questions on that signature. Has everyone got a pen? Nobody got a pen? Anyone need a pen? So has everybody signed? Has everyone got a foreign signature in front of them? So the signature in front of you should be should be another person's signature. Okay, I'm going to ask you some questions and you're going to respond with a show of hands, okay? And I would like to think that most of the hands will go up with this one. Hands up those signatures which are legible, which you can read. Yep, that's good. Okay, well, yep. You people are genuine in thought and action, sincere, and feel little need to show off. You're reliable. Congratulations. Okay, hands up those signatures which are illegible, which you cannot read. Okay, right, that's interesting. Okay, you people may have a desire to avoid or evade commitments or appointments. You think that your time is more important than somebody else's. And it also could be a sign of rudeness. But on the plus side, it could mean a sign of intelligence. So there you go. You've been exonerated. So basically, if your signatures are legible, you don't want to tell that person who you are or anything about you, don't you? You want to sort of keep it secret. Okay, anybody's signature has got a middle initial in it, like, for instance, let's see, that one there. Anyone got a signature with a middle initial in it? Okay, one there. Okay, 1, 2 there. Okay, those people have got a high, proper sense of pride and dignity about themselves. Okay, have a close look at the signature now. Has anybody's signature got a full stop after it? You might need a very close look. A dot after the signature. Okay, 1 or 2 there. Okay, none on there. 1 or okay. All right. Anybody with a signature with a full stop likes to have the final say, and no action can be entered into. Right. Yeah. Is anybody's signature too large for the piece of paper it's on? Think? Nobody. Anybody's signature too small? With you think you too large? Okay. Maybe that person's a pretentious show-off or likes being in the limelight. Okay. Anybody's signature with embellishments and flourishes and curls and things like that on it? Okay, 1 or 2. Okay, right. Okay, these people are flamboyant characters or could be eccentric, but usually good salespersons. Have another close look at the signature now. Is anybody's signature underlined? There's a line under the signature. Okay, anybody that puts a line under their signature thinks that they've got a personality, a personal magnetic charm about themselves. In other words, they think themselves of very high importance. You're underlining your own self-importance. Is anybody's signature a strange-looking formation, as though it's come from outer space or something like that? Okay, right. We've got a lot going on here. Well, that person may be an oddball character. Okay, have a look at the signature now, especially, has anybody's signature's got very long lower zone loops in the G's and the Y's, stretching down the line below, or if that's in your surname. Okay, so there's 1 or 2 or 3 there. Okay. Right, well, this will come as a bit of a bombshell. Anybody with very large lower zone loops in the G's and the Y's has got a very healthy sexual appetite. Yeah, the lower zone loops tell me about the physical side of you. Okay, anybody's signature has uses two signatures here. 2 types of signatures. It's not uncommon. Nobody. Okay. Is anybody's signature ascending? Nobody. One there. Okay. Optimism, energetic today. Anybody's signature descending? Maybe pessimism or fatigue. Anybody's signature that contains large capital letters on the first name or the last name? Okay. Well, these people think that they've got a high status in society and like to portray an air of authority about themselves. Okay. So that's just a general overview on signatures. Next time somebody signs something in front of you, have a think about it. Step back to see whether the signature's genuine or it's illegible, or whether that person is genuine or not in their signature, or they're trying to alter things. Right, so let's move on to the more serious side of what I do, and that is forensic document examination. That is the majority of my work, not graphology. I basically, I'll just skip through this slide very quickly. This is a slide from art dealers, and it's something that I dislike doing, is verifying signatures on art. There's too much controversy in the art world to actually verify any signatures. Okay, so basically when I get a signature, I need as many known or I need as many known signatures along with as many questions. The question signature has to be compared with the known signature, and the more known signatures I have for comparison standards, the better my actual better the outcome. Basically, people forge their signatures for two purposes. One, for financial gain, or for malicious intent. I'm looking sometimes at millions of dollars of mum's or dad's estate, or company formations, or insurance claims, for instance, and the work never seems to stop. And I also, it's also very disappointing to say, this is in New Zealand, a third of my clients are new immigrants. When it comes to mum or dad's estate or family disputes and things like that, money seems to be no boundaries. So with signatures and that, not only signatures but documents itself as well. And I can also say, once I do a report, only about 10% of my cases go to court. The actual cost of going to court and the time that it takes to go to court can be drawn out, but sometimes if the parties can't agree or disagree, then it has to go to court. In New Zealand, we've got 1 year to 2 year waiting time to get a court hearing because of COVID. I don't know what it's like in the other parts of the world, but obviously that's the cost. But if we're looking at millions of dollars of estate or whatever, then it may be worth it. Okay, so once again, the more known signatures I have with the question signature, the better my opinion. My opinion is not expressed in percentages. My opinion is expressed in the International Association of Document Examiners, from conclusive to highly probable to probable to little indication to inconclusive. People, if you express your percentage and opinion of percentages, then people will ask you to bump it up. Just because the client is paying me to do a report for them doesn't mean to say that my report's going to be favourable to their outcome. If I see if a client comes to me and says somebody forged a signature, and I say no, your signature's genuine, there's a sort of ulterior motive behind it. Oops. Okay. I not only look at the signature, but I look at the document itself. Now, I can't stress the importance of looking at the original documents. Most of the work that I get in is actually photocopies. photocopy doesn't reveal the true traits of handwriting. The best traits to look at is the original copy, and then I can look at the pen pressure and the line quality, which are the two most important things. Now, for instance, the emphasis on looking at the original documents, this was a case I did in Fiji. There were 7 signatures on a deed of agreement on a sugar case plantation. I did the preliminary report, and I said, yeah, well, the signature may have been forged, but it's only until I went to the courts in Fiji and looked at the original document that I saw that the signature had been overwritten with correctional fluid. See on the bottom there, written correctional fluid, and put the signature on top there. And also, I blew up the signature on the microscope. That signature there was in question. So once I honed in on the actual microscope, I saw many dissimilarities. So that was 7 signatures on a document there, which involved about 3 trips to Fiji, it's only when I looked at the original document that I saw that the actual the deed had been done, and that's suspicious in itself. Okay, so what I try and do for the courts, I try and list the question signature along with the known signatures alongside, and then I try and put up a chart like that, and once again you can see things like I've put in the terminal stroke tapers. That's the question signature. These have been snipped one after the other, along with the known signatures. And you see the terminal stroke there is blunt, blunt, blunt terminal stroke. And also the extension of the actual of the initial stroke is shorter. That one's longer. So people are quite clever at actually trying to simulate signatures, but it's their own personal traits that'll kick in after a while that'll make it a bit more difficult. Basically, when you look at the question signature and the known signatures, it's the inconspicuous traits are the ones that differentiate between the question and the known signatures. Even though when you first look at it, you'll think that it looks the same or it looks different, but when you look at it under microscope, you can see the actual finer points of the actual whether the signature's genuine or not. Okay, that was as I said, I always look at the document as well, and see whether the documents. I've just got the slides a little bit confused there. Okay, matrimonial cases are another factor that I look at a lot, and especially when it comes to estates and things like that. So in this case here, the person came up to me and said, well, he only had one word, Kelly, on the left side, and on the right side he had all the other cards from the ex-wife. And you can see that the constructional features of the letters, especially the K, is the same. The K up there is very much the same there. And also, what else was it? The shape of the Y was very much the same. The E was the same there. And the actual slant of the actual L there was very much similar as well. So basically, yes, I said that was the same person's writing. When you try and disguise your writing, if you want to send an anonymous letter, you'll try and actually alter your writing characteristics, but your characteristics, your own personal uniqueness will come out in the end. Okay, so here's an example of a case that I did. The 3 top slides are microscopic photos taken with a microscope. The bottom one, the bottom question signature, these 2 there have just been snipped from the actual document or macroscopically looked at. So by looking at it under microscope, you can actually see the finer points. Now in this case here, it probably hasn't come out all that good on the slide, but you can see a touch-up stroke, that one there, which I couldn't find on looking at it through normally. So a touch-up stroke on a question signature is a vital mistake. Somebody's trying to redoctor the signature to make it look as though it's actually genuine, but it's not. So once again, looking under the microscope, you can see a different world with question signatures. Okay, now here's a case here. We don't write checks anymore, but this is just an example to show you of people's greed. This was a case of a caregiver who looked after an elderly gentleman, and she knew that he had about $10 million in the bank. And every week that she used to write a check for $100, $100, $100. Next thing, she added 3 noughts onto the actual 100 and put 1,000 on it. So the thing is, we looked at it, and then all of a sudden the check was $100,000. So looking at under microscope, you can actually see the actual that's the actual normal way she writes there. But when you look at it under microscope on the question signature, you can see how the zeros are actually touching each other. So you can actually see some guilty feelings. So our mind alters when we're up to sort of not much, if we think we're going to have something that intent to defraud, well, that means our writing could change as well. As I said, we don't write checks as what we do, but it just shows you the actual, when it comes to money, there seems to be no greed, or there seems to be plenty of greed and no boundaries. Okay, question for you. What's wrong with these 2 signatures? That's right. Yeah, they're identical. And the moral of the thing is, there's nothing wrong with the signatures, except one has been cut and pasted from one document to another. And the moral of the story is, no person sign in exactly the same way each time. Every time you sign, there's going to be some what we call natural variation of your signature. You've just signed something now. If I ask you to sign that now, it'll be some slight variation. So if I put these 2 signatures on a transparency slide in the light and they match trait for trait, exactly the same, then I know that they've actually been cut and pasted or snipped. So one of the signatures in that case is non-genuine. It's not a forgery as such. It's just non-genuine. It's been taken, cut and pasted or lifted. And with the technology that we have today, you can usually tell. Once I look at any cut and paste signatures, I can usually see the pixelations around the actual peripheral of the signature itself. So that's a getaway. If the signature's been forged, then the actual, I can actually have a look at the line tremor and the actual fluency of the signature. Some people are good at forging signatures, but that have to get past me first. Don't think that you can get past signatures. Numerals are very unique and personalized to yourself. Numerals are subject to actually alterations, especially timesheets or dates or dollar amounts, for instance. The numerals are very unique and personalized to yourself, as well as your writing and your signature. Okay, I see a lot of malicious writing out there, especially in work situations or rest homes or whatever, or where people are living in close proximity to each other. How would you like to come in the morning and shift your keyboard and see the offensive word under your keyboard? So in this case here, I asked the organisation if they would actually submit to me the employees' application sheets, and then from there I actually said, well, these may be the 2 likely perpetrators. If somebody's going to write in block capital letters, in an obscene word, that means it's more of a habitual thing. And I have seen some real low down gutter snipe comments and letters and hate mail from all sorts of sources. And I hate to say this, but most of the actual obscene or obnoxious writing mainly comes from ladies or women. Yeah. Men would probably punch your lights out if there was a disagreement, but ladies will really write some real nasty comments. And as I said, in the workplace, that's quite common. Okay, another question for you. Are these the same authors or are they different authors? Well, I can tell you they're the same author. Even though they look pictorially different, when you actually look very close, look at the constructional features of the word, for instance, see the Y and young there, and the Y and young there. The actual spacing between the words is very much the same. The spacing probably sometimes the actual height of the middle zone letters are very much the same. The actual position of the punctuation mark is very much the same, away from the word there. And the shape of the punctuation mark is the same. So this shows you how clever people are in altering their writing. And as I say, some of us may have 2 or 3 different styles of writing, but that's the same author. So that's what you're going to come across when you're dealing with the human mind. Okay, now you're all experts. Which one of these signatures may be a candidate for a forgery? Or we don't say forgery in our trade, we say simulation in the signatures. Okay, some of you may be a bit too far away from the screen, but if you were going to guess which one could be the forgery, anyone want to pick a number? 6, good on you. I'll keep you on as my apprentice. Yeah, okay, yeah, number 6. And why did you say number 6? Okay, well that's good spotting, because you can see when somebody writes something, they get a momentum, don't they? Then the pen has to stop and think what the next word is. Okay, with this one here, you can see the terminal stroke of the L there is completely different than the blunt terminal strokes of the L's there. And so this one there may be the candidate here for a simulation. As I said, the most important thing when looking at ascertaining a forgery is the signature, is the pen pressure and the line quality are the 2 most important things when looking at forgeries and documents, and that's why it's important to look at the original documents. Let's skip that one. Okay, I'm going to prove to you that writing comes from the brain, not from the pen and paper. Have a look at the beautiful script. This is one of the charities I support in New Zealand, Mouth and Foot Artists. This guy's lying in bed with the pen stuck out of his mouth, and have a look at the beautiful script that's coming out without any hands. So that proved to you, as Ren said, that it's not called handwriting, it's brain writing, and that proves perfectly the same scenario there, that beautiful script, which is most impressive than what you'll see from any other educated person. Okay, let's just divulge a little bit. Have a look. This is our signature of our Prime Minister in New Zealand. So you'd have to be very careful what you put in my letterbox, because it could end up somewhere else. So what do we say about the Prime Minister of New Zealand? Well, you can see that the signature is dominated with very high capital letters. So somebody that's actually, he probably enjoys the limelight. Maybe a little bit, the long terminal stroke at the end of the signature there may mean he might be a little bit suspicious. but usually the writing was usually rounded formations. So somebody that's quite easy to get along with, and somebody that's quite a sort of malleable or easy person to get to know. Signature's not entirely legible, but once again it's unique to him, and the actual line quality is consistent throughout, so he's actually very much quite an energetic person, as opposed to these two characters here. Right. One is Donald Trump's signature and one is Kim's signature. So, what do we make of Donald Trump's signature? It's made up of angular formations, angular connections. So Donald Trump's signature looks like a barbed wire fence, doesn't it? He's somebody that doesn't take any advice except from himself. Somebody with very angular writing like that would be pure hell to live with. Somebody that's highly critical of other people. Angular, when you see him sign, his whole body shakes, doesn't it? Have a look at the pen pressure. It's blunt. He's a bully, and that, and yeah, and very high. The actual points of the actual upper zone go in like a spear, don't they? And that. So yeah. So somebody will stab you. He'll stab you in the back if you're not looking, and he doesn't care about anybody else except himself. This was actually taken in mid-air when Trump and Kim were in at some sort of peace meeting. Okay, what do we think of Kim's signature? Even though it's in Korean, it's ascending, so you may be in an optimistic mood, but the other thing is a very light pen pressure. One may say that he doesn't like to do any hard work. Okay, I'm going to prove to you what alcohol does to your writing. Okay, the first line, the party begins, the writing is legible. After the second or third writing, the writing starts to sort of wobble a bit. About 7 drinks, the writing deteriorates at such a stage where it's illegible. So the actual moral of the story is that how come you can be charged, I don't know in Thailand, but you can be charged and drunk in charge of a car. You should also be charged drunk in charge of a pen in this case. And this shows you what alcohol does to your brain when it comes to writing. The writing distorts. Okay, we're coming to Ren's signature here. Now, you can see that he's had a complete change of signature here. And also, there's lots of circumstances in our lives where we change our signature to actually adapt to our latest vocation or political or hobbies and things like that. So
I should tell, most people don't know, I was originally called Gary Ross Sargent, so that's my original signature for my original name. Then I had an epiphany in my early 30s and I changed my name to Ren Alexander when I was 33.
Okay, right. So basically, even though the constructional letters differ, the actual connections between the letters are very much the same, and the actual height of the capital letters when compared to the middle zone letters are very much the same. So probably Ren is basically very much the same character, and also the actual line quality and the pen pressure are the same as well. Maybe with the actual surname after Ren is probably a little bit underlining your importance a little bit more. Maybe you actually feel as though that you deserve a bit more attention than
I think it was also underlining the fact that I was a new person and I was starting on a new path and stuff. So yeah, I think that possibly has something to do with the underlining.
Yeah. Well,
also I'm an author too, so, but something I never picked up that somebody else did and told me is that my first name is actually Zen with a line through it.
All right, okay, yeah. Although that could be mistaken for a dollar symbol or something like that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, look, it's not uncommon for somebody to change their signature or their handwriting during their lifetime to suit their own personal circumstances. And I see lots of changes with people's signature during what their circumstances change. When I look at a question signature, I need to look at that question signature with the known signatures as contemporaneous as possible, because if I look at the signature, the question signature with a known signature that was done 5 years or 10 years ago, I may not get the full picture. So the actual 2 or 3 year time frame within the question signature and the known signatures is my preference. But in Ren's case, there are some characteristics that have changed in the signature, but the line quality and the actual connection points are very much the same, and the actual the proportional capital letters to the middle zone letters are very much the same, and also the gap between the actual between Gary and Sargent there and Len, and so you're actually writing your Christian name and your surname, so that hasn't changed as well. It's just the constructional aspects of the writing there which have actually changed, but I don't think it's changed your character too much, but you've actually slightly tweaked it in some ways to suit your personality status.
And I've concealed my sex drive better in the second
You
signature.
have, yeah, congratulations. Yeah, that's for the beneficiary benefit, yeah. Okay, so quite interesting case, this one, yeah. Okay, right, that's my final slide. Now, basically, you want to know how I started off? Well, basically I started reading books on graphology and then started practicing on friends and family and things like that. And then people, then I thought, well, it's fascinating getting to know people's personality through their handwriting. And then from there, people asked me, or somebody forged my signature, or somebody, you know, this document is non-genuine. So from there, I transitioned to being a forensic document examiner, and through doing the course studies and through the United States. So basically, in New Zealand, the work never seems to stop. I always have a continuity of work. For a population of 5 million people, the work never stops, and especially when it comes to mum or dad's estate and wills. Now, property prices are 10 times more than what they are in family wills and estates. I can be looking at millions of dollars of estate, not only in civil cases, but also corporate cases as well. The police have their own document examiner who does the serious fraud office cases, but in New Zealand there's only myself and another lady that actually do all the civil cases. Plus I get a lot of cases from Fiji and Australia as well. So the work never stops, and I'm trying to retire. In the meantime, I've started to employ an apprentice who's quite interested in doing this sort of work. Yeah, so that's how, if you ever want to get started, well, you can read books on graphology or forensic handwriting examination. It's very easily accessible. Okay, so that's, as I said, handwriting makes you smarter. There's nothing good for your cognitive brain to see the pen flow onto paper and actually see the writing that you've actually produced. So if anyone's got any questions, please go ahead.
Okay, there's one over here on your left.
Hello, hello. Thank you very much. Very interesting talk. Can you tell me, on a handwriting, straight lines above the center, not loops, straight lines on letters above the center?
You mean on the middle zone letters? You mean the slant of the writing? Is that what you're meaning?
No, above the lines go up above, go north of the letters, the word.
Well, this one's ascending. Is that what you mean?
Ascending, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
ascending. Okay, well that means optimism or energy. Yeah, at the moment, yeah. It's ascending, that one, yeah. If they were up and down like that, if they're down, well, that means it may be the opposite. It could be pessimism or fatigue, yeah. The next question.
Yes, on the left side.
Just looking at these slides here, can you judge a person's educational standard by the writing?
Yes, you can, yeah.
And there was one there particularly that said there's a letter, I think addressed to you, and they asked you for a opinion.
Yeah. That's right. You can look at the person's educational standard by looking at the actual grammatical or punctuation marks of the handwriting, and have a look at how the actual grammatical or how the writing has been formed and that. But mind you, it's only an opinion. But if I see the writing, like if you look at somebody that's uneducated, like say a criminal mind or whatever, immediately you can see that the person's standard of education is low. But if I can see the writing, pictorial effect of the writing looks good, then I can say that person's education is adequate or satisfactory by looking at the writing.
Yeah. So when you do that, you can judge just what where they sit.
Yeah, you
I
can.
mean, I think you said before that you don't really actually read it. All you do is look at the structure of the writing.
Yeah. When it comes to forensic document examination, if the signature or the handwriting is genuine or not, then I try and not consider graphology. I try and keep it separate. But I do have it in the back of my mind that the writing can be what we call people with uneducated, we call them low-skilled writer. Medium sort of thing, we call a medium-skilled writer. If the writing looks good and it's quite fluent and it's got punctuation marks and it looks readable, that's a highly skilled person. So that's their educational level. It's only by looking at it straight away that I can tell you, what educational level, the background that they have. But when it comes to malicious letters or obscene letters or people that write anonymous letters, usually those are people from low educational backgrounds. But they try and disguise their writing, and then I try and read through that disguise to actually see what level of education that they've actually had. So there's a lot of moving parts to it that I need to assess.
So just tying in with that, as I understand it, they're going to stop teaching running writings in primary school, cursive. Because they're just going to teach kids to print, because then they're going to just go to their phones and they'll be texting.
That's right, yeah.
So they won't teach cursive. How is that going to change graphology, etc.?
Well, yeah, it is what it is transitioning now into digital now onto writing tablets and pads, and that it's going to transition back to the digital pads, and it does change people's writing characteristics. It's true, but it's not being taught in school as what it was. Correct, and that's a negative, but. I don't know what's going to be the future, because people are still tapping away on keyboards. But it can affect the cognitive mind by tapping away. Yeah. So.
Going on from that, when I was 9 years old, I was assessed as having a reading age of 5, and it took me a long time to catch up with my true age as regards writing and spelling. And from those times, my writing was absolutely terrible. You couldn't read it, you couldn't distinguish what the letters were, because I was trying to hide the fact that I couldn't spell.
Yeah.
Is that something that's common?
It can be. That's right. You're probably. I can't put it in words, but you're trying to suppress some of your writing characteristics to actually fit in with your current circumstances. It's only until you moved on to sort of your vocation and away from school that maybe your writing has changed and actually got a little bit more sort of back to normalcy. But it's probably not uncommon for kids to suppress their writing habits. True, like you did, for various reasons, and that could be psychological as well. Yeah, or mental or physical. So that's not uncommon as well. Exactly. There's another one.
Yeah, I found my writing has changed since I did away with a fountain pen to a biro. When I was at school, I was taught copywriting, which is...
Oh, yeah, copperplate writing, yeah.
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 And that followed on in my youth with the pen. But using a biro, I've gone sloppy. In some cases, you know, not eligible. Because I read it myself and I thought, what the bloody hell have they written there? Is that a normal trait?
It is, that's right, yeah. And that just shows you some of the cognitive wheels in your brain may be not as good as what they were, yeah. And I looked at myself as well when I look at my own writing.
Yeah.
It's the same, yeah. That can happen to anyone, and that's a warning sign that you're sort of
my capacity as a brain is collapsing.
Yeah, your cognitive cells in your brain are not the same as when you were younger.
Yeah.
And it's going to happen to all of us, unfortunately.
You mean it's a natural function?
It is. It's a natural, as part of body aging. And the writing shows that, as well.
Thank you.
Yes. When I sign the back of my credit card, it's very readable, very nice handwriting. But when I go to a hotel or I'm at immigration, they say, sign this, sign this, sign this. It's scribble.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I tell you what, credit cards are not good samples of signatures because your signature is compressed into a very narrow space. And it's not really a true reading of your signature on the back of a credit card or even a driver's license, for instance. But if you're scribbling something like the hotel voucher or something like that, sure, you'll just scribble that as a time-saving constraint. But if you're signing a legal agreement or something big, you're going to take a bit more time to sign, isn't it? So it's legible and it's proof that it's you. I mean, with the hotel signing the voucher, you don't care if it's you or not because you're in a hurry to get out of there and it's just a scribble. But yeah, you'll adapt. You'll have different signatures for different circumstances. And also, remember when we do handwriting, we always got to compare initials with initials, signatures with signatures, writing with writing, printing with printing, because each person can write, print, sign in different formats. So you might be initialing your hotel voucher, and on the back of your credit card, it may be your signature. But there's variations of all that, yeah. So that's another thing that's quite common, yeah. This one? Or that
Yeah.
one?
So this analysis applies to native English speakers.
That's right.
For somebody who is writing English as a second language, how do these...
Yes, that needs to be taken.
How does that apply?
Yeah, I always ask if English is their first language, and that needs to be taken into consideration. I've just done a big case on Chinese characters, for instance, and the thing is that even though I can't read or write Chinese, when I look at a foreign language, something written in a foreign language, if I see the pen pressure and the line quality very much the same, the position or the utilization of space within the document or some other characteristics that I can get a positive or negative thing, then I will comment on if it's genuine or not. But I always need to know if I'm dealing with say new immigrants, whatever, if English is their first or second language, and often the case, things may be signed in their own language or their own signature style. But it's, as I said, there's some traits that I can pick up on foreign language, but other traits that are, say, relevant to the English language, like T-bars and I-dots, for instance, that I'll just have to discount. So if I have to look at a foreign language signature, I may be very cautious on my opinion, and I might say it's probable that it's genuine or not. I may not stick my neck out. Unless I can read the language from whatever country, I shouldn't really give a positive opinion. I could just give an indication, not a conclusion.
This is from the forensic point of view.
That's
what
right.
What about from the personal traits
Okay,
analysis point of view?
for graphology, looking at foreign writing, I don't do it for foreign languages. Graphology I'll only do for the English language, but for forensic handwriting analysis, I can pick up some points. Yeah, so I've got to be very careful. It's a cautious indication rather than a conclusive indication.
Yeah. Yes. I've got a microphone, so
Yeah.
sorry. I wondered if you'd ever have to testify in court cases, and if there's an opponent with their own expert, how does that work out?
Exactly. I do have to give testimony in court, and if they'll only produce their own expert if they disagree with my findings, and that's often the case. Yeah. Then it's up to the judge to decide, because all we're doing is giving an opinion as an expert witness, and it's often is the case I have to appear in court. And I use one of my slides to explain to the judge or jury, and then the opposition will bring their own expert in who may disagree or agree with me. Now, no experts ever agree or disagree, don't they, in that? So then, it's, as I said, it's up to the judge, but that's a very common scenario in these sort of cases, especially when you're dealing with millions of dollars of land, property, estate, company formations, insurance things, and things like that. Yeah. But as I said, people try and avoid going to court because of the cost, but I attend quite regularly.
Hello.
Hello.
Fantastic talk. That was so interesting. I'm not quite sure what my question is, but when you were talking about education before, it kind of triggered a memory. Many years ago, I received 2 letters from an inmate, high security. He'd been accused of serial rape and 1 murder. The letters were, I occasionally take them out and look at them because they are so beautiful. In prison, the paper that they're given is valuable. They don't get lots of it. This letter was written on an A4 piece of paper, lined, very thin paper, so you could see what you'd sort of written on both sides of the paper. And it was written on both sides of the paper. It was absolutely perfect, like the perfection of the margins, the size of the letters. It's almost like an art piece.
Victorian
and
effect.
he had taken up every single piece of space on the paper. And it's like, and it was beautifully written. Like, and when you were talking about education, now I know a little bit about this person. I knew his brother, and he, like, they're Māori, and you're from New Zealand, so he came from up north, and then he was whangaed into my friend's family. And I know that the mother was horrible to him. I have no idea about his level of education, but looking at this beautiful piece of artwork, almost, it's like it just didn't make sense.
Yeah.
But maybe it does to you. I don't know.
In prison, they've got all day all the time to write beautiful script. But I have had prisoners write to me I mean, their letters are actually vetted by the authorities with all sorts of circumstances. But I have seen some beautiful prisoners writing. But on the opposite end, I've seen some absolutely atrocious writing. But in your case there, probably had time to sit down and think about it and write nice and slowly and clearly for whatever subject to make sure he got his point across. But that's not uncommon. Quite unusual. Yeah.
Well, I would like to make an analysis of this talk, and I would say it was fantastic.
Well, thank you very much.
And we have a very small token of our appreciation, which has been deliberately not signed by anyone. So thank you so much for such a wonderful.
Yeah, thank you. And I also like to sum up saying I never want to see any of you in my office. Yeah, for forgeries or signatures.
How often do you come over to Thailand? And
usually once a year, yeah, in the low season.
okay.
Yeah. It's been a real pleasure speaking to you, and it's been a point of difference than my usual speaking circuit in New Zealand, so it's been quite an honour.
Well, the honour's all ours. We all learned something today, I'm sure, and it was just an extremely entertaining talk that we were all fascinated by.